video, I'm going to show you how to create effective bar graphs in Tableau. So let's fire up the software. And let's connect to our data source, which is the IT tickets dataset by location. And so first things first, we're going to be looking at our data types and making sure that, looking at our data fields to make sure that Tableau assigned the correct data types for each data field. So for our locations column, it looks like Tableau assigned type string, which is what we want. It's categorical data. And then for tickets processed and tickets received, assigned type integer, which is also what we want. So now that we reviewed that, let's go ahead to our worksheet. And so for the first exercise, we're going to look at two series vertical bar graph. Let's go ahead and put the location as a column. So we're going to be creating a vertical bar graph, so then the location would make sense in the column's header. And then we're going to be putting the measure names in column. So we want this location, but also subdivided by tickets processed and tickets received. And then we want our actual data, which will be in measure values. And so you can see here we have the number of records, which is default. That's like the default metric that we put in here, so we can remove that. So now you can see we have our tickets processed and tickets received in bar graph form, categorized by location, and subcategorized by tickets processed and tickets received. And so if you didn't know how to create this, you can go over to the Show Me tab, and then it will create it for you based on the data that you have in your data set or in your workbook. And notice at the bottom here that Tableau will tell you exactly what you need, how much data and what type of data you need in order to create the specific data visualization that you're currently hovering over. Grayed out means that you don't have any, you have insufficient data in these columns and rows to create the visualization that you're currently hovering over. So you can create a tree map and create a pie chart. Then also the stacked bars, although it gives me it's a little funky. And so if we do want a stacked bar graph, we'll have to do this by hand. We'll bring over locations to columns. And then rows, we will have measure values. And then we'll divide this up by tickets processed and tickets received with measure names. That's how you create a two-series vertical bar graph and also a vertical stacked bar graph. But if you look at the data here, especially the vertical bar graph, is that it's hard to compare location because the data isn't normalized. So, for example, Manhawkin received 763 tickets, but Egg Harbor Township received 498. So it's hard to regardless of the amount of tickets that were processed in these locations, it's difficult to compare the two, or the side-by-side comparison with the data that we currently have in the spreadsheet. And so in order to do this, we want the ratio between the tickets processed and the tickets received to get a percentage of the tickets processed to compare location to location. But as you can see here, we don't have this as a data field in our data set. So what do? We can either go back into Excel and use a formula to create this data for us. Just do the division, tickets processed divided by tickets received on the columns. It's easy to do in Excel, but in Tableau, you can also create this new data field in Tableau, what we call calculated fields. Very important concept that I'm going to introduce to you right now. And so there's several ways to create a calculated field. You can go over to the data source directly and say create calculated field. But I like going over to the top right by the dimensions and then clicking create calculated field. And so let's see, give it a good name. And so we'll say percent tickets processed. And so Tableau is very smart, so it will like auto-populate. It will like try to predict what you're typing. And so we want tickets. Remember from from the raw data, from the data source down here, we want tickets processed. And so it will try to predict what you're trying to type in, and then divided by tickets received. And then we're going to hit OK. And you'll notice that that comes up as a measure value here, but let's delete all these. Now it's a new data field. Now it's a new data field in our Tableau environment that we can now manipulate for visualization purposes. Well, first thing we should do it's a fraction form, decimal fraction form. Let's make this a percent instead. So we can go right click on our new calculated field, go to default properties, number format. We're gonna change this to percentage with 0 decimal places. So now let's create our bar graph. And so similar to what we learned in the book, in our textbook, that with like long categorical names, let's create a horizontal bar graph. So location to rows, and then percent tickets processed to columns. Now we can easily see the locations, and then also the ticket ratio. And let's sorry about that. That was odd. And so let's go here and let's organize this bar graph in descending order by just going to the x-axis here, and then you can organize by ascending, descending, and then also in ABC order by the by the rows. Now you can see here that the normalized comparison is Manahawkin, 71% tickets processed, Egg Harbor Township, Ventnor, Marlton, and so forth on the way down, with Cape May Courthouse being at the lower rungs of the efficiency scale here. So first, let's do some formatting. Since there's not a lot of variance between each of these categories, 71 to 43, the bars look a little too long for my liking. Let's go ahead and condense this down. And then let's get rid of the grid lines and also the borders for the X and Y. So you can right click inside of the bar graph, hit format. Then you're going to go over here to the format lines, and then you're going to go over to rows and columns. That's where we're going to be doing our work here. And so you want to get rid of no grid lines and no zero lines for either rows or columns. And this is, you can apply, just as a side note, you can apply this to any of the visualizations you'll be creating down the road in Tableau. And so, and also the axis rulers are considered the X and Y axis borders, if you will. You can also click no for those. So now we have a clean visualization here. And so what if, hypothetically, the client that you just created this visualization for said that the target for each location is 60%. 60% tickets processed. And so he or she wants to include that in the visualization. What you can do is add a reference line. You can create a custom reference line. You would use something called parameters, which is right beneath creating a calculated field. So you can hit click parameter, give it a good name, such as target. And current value, you want to set this reference value to 60%, or in decimal form 0.60, and then click OK. Now you can go over to Analytics, and then we're going to add the reference line, which is going to be our target, which is our newly made parameter. And we'll make this line not a solid line right here, but a dash line, so it doesn't stand out as much. Now that we have that, we're not done yet. We're going to utilize the pre-attentive attributes of the textbook that we learned by making only the locations that have passed this 60% threshold stand out with color, and then the rest of the locations in the background. So what we can do is we can create another we can do this with calculated fields, and just bear with me. So location, color of location. So we're going to use if-else statement logic. And so you're going to type if, and then this is a very logical sequence of calculations here. So if our calculated field, our percent tickets processed, and start typing it, and then you can choose from the prediction here. If percent tickets processed is greater than 60%, then blue. If not, or else, that means anything under 60%, gray. And then you end the calculated field. And click OK. Then add this to color. Now you can see that the locations below 60% change color. Although not to gray, but we can change that. The default is the blue and the orange. Go here, double click for the gray, and we're almost done. We just need to make a title here, add a title, descriptive title, short descriptive title, key tickets process by location. Now, since in our title we included by location, this is considered redundant. So we can right click and hide field labels for rows. And one last thing we should do is, I don't like how the x-axis title is bolded. That kind of takes away from our data. And so we can format, title, font, make that Tableau book. We'll make this text. You want to have a good practice is to make all the text consistent except for the title. And there you have it. So this is how you create an effective bar graph visualization in Tableau.